the way from Oslo, Norway. And thank you for doing this so late in the evening for us, Frederick. We really appreciate that.
No problem.
And he is the sales and marketing at OHD, but he tells us that there's such a small crew, everybody does everything. So he's chief bottle washer as well.
Yeah.
So before Frederick talks about his spirits and probably shows us a cocktail or two, Mr. Christensen did send in a couple of questions in advance. And is the Linni Aquavit still made in Norway? Is it still shipped around the world in cask before it's bottled? And was that ever really the case? That's number one, Frederick. Go ahead.
It is. So the Linni Aquavit is probably the most well-known aquavit, especially outside Scandinavia. It is also the biggest brand in Scandinavia. And yes, it is true. It was shipped around the world the first time. And it still is true. It's put in a container on ships going to Sydney, from Oslo to Sydney. And all of its ships. It's probably the least environmental friendly spirit in the world. So yeah, it was and still is. And it's made just outside Oslo, where now 75% of all the aquavit in the world is produced. Because you have this one giant producer, Arcus, which also produced the Linni Aquavit, who also have bought up almost all the Danish aquavit brands as well. So most Danish aquavit is now made just outside Oslo as well.
Great, thank you, Frederick. And number two was, what would be the main difference between and you're calling it aquavit, not aquavit, yes? Is that right? Aquavit?
Yeah,
both are correct?
It has a little bit different spelling and pronunciation in all of the Scandinavian countries, but it comes, of course, then from aquavita. So the water of life.
Okay. And it's the ones distilled by OHD yourself. And what's the difference with those made commercially, like with the new, I say this badly too, Aalborg?
Well, Aalborg is then a Danish aquavit, which is made slightly different than Norwegian aquavit. That's basically the main spice. We use dill or caraway. The other Scandinavian countries tend to use dill, whereas in Norway, it's always been caraway. That's the main ingredients. We also distill all our aquavit as you would do London dry gin. So all the botanicals in one distillation. Whereas this is very common in aquavit that you use single distillations or macerations that's mixed together before then barrel aging or without barrel aging. Because barrel aging is quite Norwegian. It's basically what's typical for Norwegian aquavit, and it's almost not done in any of the other Scandinavian countries.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Frederick. Okay, well, shall we just have you get started and show us your product?
Yeah, first off, I can basically sum up a little bit of what is OHD, Oslo Håndverksdestilleri. That's not going to roll off your tongue if you're not a native Norwegian speaker, I know. So it basically means Oslo Craft Distillery. And we are the first distillery in Oslo in 100 years. Because we got prohibition in Norway in 1915. And in 1925, it was open for selling alcohol again in Norway, but then with a state monopoly. And also it was a state monopoly on distillation. So all distilleries in Norway was closed, and it was one state-owned distillery that then produced all the spirits in Norway for almost 100 years. So this, of course, did a lot to basically decimate the proud distillations history that we have in Norway. Because we had just before, in the beginning of the 1800s, was over 10,000 distilleries in Norway.
Is that right?
All of them making their own aquavit recipes. Of course, we made gin and other stuff. Of course, aquavit is the main spirit. With the modernization of distillation, it got a fewer distilleries, but it was still a huge spectrum then of aquavit, different aquavits being made. But when then the monopoly took over distillation, they basically just took over the recipe for the 7 most popular aquavits in Norway, and that was all was made until the 1990s. So we lost a lot of our heritage through that. So when we started then in 2015, or at least the paperwork in 2015, the distillery which I'm at now, we had then ready in 2017. We wanted to look back and see, could we revive some of these proud traditions? Also do a more craft production than have been traditional for them under the monopoly, where it's basically very industrial how the spirits were made. So we started to look also at what's happening in Nordic cuisine, which basically been the big trend in international kitchens for the last 15 years. And a lot of it I see like basically being typical, the flavors and the ingredients for where you're at and producing. So we gave ourselves the dogma of only distilling with botanicals native to Norway, which of course seems like a natural thing for aquavit because that was how it was made in the beginning. But how aquavit is made for the last 150 years, been used a lot of exotic spices like star anise, grain of paradise, for example. But where we started then doing the aquavit is only been what grows wild in Norway. And most of this, of course, then we start doing gin. Gin, of course, main botanical juniper, grows all over Norway. But in all gins, of course, you have citrus. It's not very much citrus growing in Norway, of course. So when we produced this gin, it was actually the first gin in the world produced commercially without citrus. So here, for example, we use pine shoot instead. So that's been basically the big dogma for us.
And what is that? You're trying to get the acidity that would be the citrus. You're getting that from the pine.
It is the citrus flavor, because you wouldn't get that acidity coming across in a distillation.
Okay.
Because of course normally would then be dried peels that you use, whereas there's dried pine shoot that we use. But what we could is we have talked a little bit now about aquavit, and it could maybe be interesting that we have a little look on the history of aquavit, because it goes basically back almost as long as whiskey. Because the first written source we have on whiskey is from let me see, it was from around 1520, and 1531 is the first written source of aquavit, and it's actually from Norway. This is a letter going from a tradesman in Bergen to the bishop in Trondheim. This is 2 different cities in Norway. And so I'm sending you a couple of bottles here of this aquavita. It can heal all the ills you have both inside and outside. So it's a multi-purpose beverage, this thing.
Apply it liberally, right? Yes.
Yeah. And at this point, it was spirits distilled with botanicals, and of course then botanicals that had medicinal purpose. There were no clear set rules at this time of what it was supposed to contain. And we're going to touch upon the first thing that separates Norwegian aquavit from other aquavits. And it's that it has to be made of potato spirit. Actually, all our spirits is based on Norwegian potatoes. And of course, the potato came a little bit later to Norway in the 1700s. And it wasn't an immediate hit in Norway either. The farmer was skeptic to it. What was this new spud? And it didn't help with the reputation that it wasn't mentioned in the Bible. It couldn't be any good if it wasn't mentioned in the Bible and came from the soil. But it actually was the priests that saw, because Norway doesn't have the most fruitful soil in the world. But the potato, it's it's not too demanding. So you can get it to grow here quite well. So actually we had what was called a potato priest going around Norway and saying, well, this is the thing that you need to grow to feed yourself and your family. And like in France, where you make spirit out of grapes, Scotland, where you make spirit out of barley, you have a tendency to make spirits out of what grows well for you. So slowly the potato started to become interesting to make spirit out of. It was actually a Swedish woman that invented the technique where you can get the starch from the potato to ferment. So we have a lot to thank her for. But it was actually a non-drinker who was the biggest fighter for getting us to use potato spirits. Because at this point, we were in union, or basically we were owned by Denmark, which had then decided, well, you can't use the very little grain you have to make spirits. You have to use that for baking bread. And we would like you to not make your own spirits. So no moonshining, and you can then buy the spirits from us. But this Christopher Hammer, the non-drinker, he said, no, this is not right. We need to make our own spirits. So he actually released a book on how you can make spirits flavored with what grows in Norway. So in many ways, he started the whole idea of that we're building off of using what grows locally to flavor your spirits. But we also knew that the flavor of these spirits wasn't going to be very good because it was primitive distillation methods and stills. So we recommended then using caraway to cover up the fusel flavor on the spirit. So this way we started then also to use caraway traditionally in Norwegian aquavit. And later on, it was then in very early 1800s, there were someone that wanted to export stuff from Trondheim in the middle of Norway to Indonesia. And also on this ship, they then placed some barrels of aquavit. It sailed all the way to Indonesia. At this point, it was called Batavia. And also this place we produced Batavia Arak. It's not that very well known today, but at that point, it was most of the most well-recognized spirit in the world. Of course, they saw no point in spending their money on spiced Norwegian potato spirit. So all the barrels went back home to Trondheim. And they tasted it and said, well, this tastes a lot better now than when we shipped it. So that's basically how both the barrel aging of aquavit started in Norway, but then also the birth of lineage style of aquavit. So basically, if you see, and this is then the three traits that separate Norwegian aquavit from other aquavit. It's potato spirit, caraway, and barrel aging. If you look at the other countries, it's any neutral grain spirit. It's dill or caraway, but most of them use dill, and it's not barrel aging. So we can thank our bad soil, our bad distillation, and our bad sales skills for
well done.
Well
done. But I thought that all aquavit was made from potatoes.
No, only in Norway.
But Danish aquavit is made from potatoes as well.
Some of it is, some of it's not. It
this one right here.
Yeah. So the rule of it has to, because Norway is also the only one that has its own appellation, its own AOC for aquavit, and it's then the Norwegian barrel aged aquavit.
Right. And what do you typically drink this neat or on the rocks or?
You'd never drink it on the rocks.
No.
You drink it with a little, what do you call it? after you take the aquavit and then you take a little bit of beer.
Oh, a chaser of beer.
Yeah, a chaser.
Uh-huh.
Cold beer.
Is that what you're doing, Frederick, right now?
I haven't a little bit of beer. I haven't had my aquavit yet, but
Oh, okay.
Every time our family gets together, my sibs and I, we line up, 10 of us, a little bit of aquavit and about a half a glass of cold beer.
Ah, sounds very civilized, Vern.
It is, except we can't get together anymore.
Yeah, have to do it on Zoom, right? Like I do with my kids. That's right. All right.
what makes aquavit quite unique as a spirit is it's predominantly been drinking together with food. So you have it with traditional food. Of course, then in the other Scandinavian countries, a lot of herring, fish dishes. In Norway, especially Christmas time, with the traditional Christmas food, it's very common. So actually, 70% of all aquavit in Norway is sold during Christmas.
Wow.
And it's the biggest spirit category in Norway.
Amazing.
But of course, as a year-round thing, drinking it with a beer as a chaser, really nice. But you can also use it in cocktails.
Are you going to give us a recipe?
I can only mention I haven't prepared to make any now, but
Okay.
For example, ours, which I could start now to have a taste of it.
I think you should.
Yeah. So the thing is, we, of course, like I mentioned, we only use then botanicals native to Norway. And we also found out, of course, how should we then pick which botanicals, where should we start? So we ended up going to the Apotheker Botanical Garden at a local museum to see what they had there, and we found something worked nice. We also some of the old guard, what they used in their old spice grams, and yeah, we got a little nice selection. And then we started checking out, well, what have these traditionally been used for, and found out that half of them has been used as painkillers, and the other half as antidepressives. So you get extra happy out of this aquavit. But it also have it also the flavor profiles. Since we don't use these heavy exotic spices, we use basically what we can call wild mint plants, and it's a lot of floral notes in it. We use, for example, chamomile, elderflowers, dandelion in it. So this floral herbal style doesn't really go with the type of cask that have been used mainly for aquavit in Norway, which is sherry or other fortified wine casks. So we use American oak ex-bourbon barrels for this aquavit. So you get it is also this nice then, of course, chocolate, coconut, vanilla note to it, which is a lot more mixable than the sherry cask aquavit with a more heavy spice notes to it. So you can use this in almost any gin cocktail, or you can also use it in a more of a whiskey style of cocktail. So if you want a little more herbal, spicy Manhattan, it's great using this aquavit in this. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that? I'll give that a try when these bottles arrive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we can try it. So on the nose, you have quite a mild, fresh caraway note to it. And this is also the style of distillation. Because also caraway gives quite a lot of lemon notes. But many times in aquavit, you have more of that, almost like sauerkraut, the type of boiled caraway notes. But that comes in the end of distillations. So we cut a lot earlier the distillation than many aquavit producers, basically to keep that light, fresh style. And you also have then, of course, like I said, all those mint notes. So you use a herb it's called horehound that gives this almost a spearminty note to it. But we also have our signature botanical meadowsweet, which is called the vanilla of the Nordics, which gives a lot of those, more of those vanilla notes to it. And of course, all of those floral notes.
Hmm. Oh, I'm envious that I don't have some of it here with me.
It was also we worth mentioning also about this aquit is we have done it. It looks a lot lighter than you're used to see most aquits, but that's because we don't use any artificial coloring in it. Most aquits also add a lot of sugar to it. This is no added sugar to it at all. So it's
do you still get to 40% alcohol without the sugar?
Well, it's
when
added
you distill it?
Sugar afterwards.
Yes, okay.
But of course, the thing is, it is the same way as gin with aquit. It's redistilled because for the appellation rules, you have to have the distillation of potato spirit to a minimum of 95% alcohol. Then we water it down to about 55% alcohol, add the botanicals, and then redistill it.
Right. Okay.
So like with the gin, we put the more hard botanicals like the caraway, for example, for the aquit, the juniper for the gin in the pot itself. But the more floral, lighter botanicals, we put into a vapor basket. But they're both in the same distillation process, and the alcohol go through it and flavor the final product.
Right.
This is also been barrel aged for a minimum of 1.5 years.
And the label on your gin is pretty cool. What can you tell us about that?
First off, we have to basically start on with the name Vidda. Vidda is the name of the mountain plateau in the middle of Norway. And you have basically like a fairy tale drawing going all around it. And you can find there's a lot of small clues to how the idea was came about in it. So, for example, of course, impossible to see here on Zoom. You will find 3 guys, you will find a river, you will find a cabin on it. It was basically then 3 guys walking around the mountain for a whole day. And what you're going to do when you walk around there? Well, you're going to talk about what you're going to do when you're done when you hike, which is then drinking and eating. But also there's a lot of interesting plants around there. And it's juniper everywhere. So when you then have your gin and tonic at the cabin at night, it became natural to have the discussion. Well, we have juniper. Would it be possible then to basically make a London dry style gin with only botanicals that we can see around us here? And the answer ended up then being Vidda. And if it's a good answer, well, first off, the bottle won the first year a master for the design. And it later on also won a master for taste, now twice last year. So it's basically been named one of the best gins in the world by the Spirit Business, basically the leading spirit magazine in the world.
Congratulations. That's so no mean feat. That's tough to do. There's a lot of competition out there.
it is. And also we have gotten a gold medal from the same competition, both for the aquit and also the vodka.
Fantastic. Love the Norwegian wood. Do you actually play that song when you drink that wine or drink that vodka? Sorry. Yeah.
We read a book to it.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah. Well, it started basically as the name Norwegian wood was actually just a joke name we had when we were working on the concept. But at the end, we found it was so good, so we keep it.
It's stuck. That's good. I think that's really nice. I like it when it's casual that way, and you can enjoy it and not too stuffy, you know.
Yeah. And we were also concerned about we're not going to be able to get the rights to the name, but it ended in the end. We have the rights to the whole world for the name, except Norway.
Right. Yes.
So that was a bit of a headache. It went very fast developing this product. So actually, the day of printing, we didn't get a phone call. You do know there's someone else that has the right to the name Norwegian wood in Norway, because we got the EU rights, but we're not the EU members. I didn't even think about that. No. So like, what we're going to do? Like, we can't really make a whole new design for Norway. But what's the smallest thing we can do to switch it? Well, if you take the W and turn it upside down, you get Norwegian mood. So it's named Norwegian mood in Norway and Norwegian wood in the rest of the world.
Oh, that's funny. Wow. And does it get you in the mood then, I suppose?
Well, it is mood.
Right.
And that's one of the things when we developed this, because we just didn't want a plain tasteless potato vodka. We wanted, of course, we always play with Norwegian botanicals when we do distillations. So we started off adding birch leaves to it to give it a little bit of herbalness. We still wanted it to be a vodka, not a flavored spirit. So we wanted just give some character to it, not a heavy taste to it. And it was okay, but we want to do something with the mouthfeel. And most vodkas actually add quite a lot of sugar to them to give that creamy mouthfeel and to play down the alcohol burn. But instead, we then started distilling with quite a lot of meadowsweet in it. And that gives a really nice creamy mouthfeel. Like I mentioned, it also gives a vanilla flavor to it. So we then, just to give some high note to that sweetness that you think vanilla is, we added a little bit of elderflower to it. And the way we tested it to see if we have gotten it right was basically, we did all the test distillation. We made a vodka martini and a vodka tonic. Because we knew when we had an interesting vodka martini and we could just taste the vodka through the tonic, but it wasn't too overpowering, then we had the recipe right.
Very nice. I'm going to try one of those too when your bottle arrives.
You should. With a twist of lemon.
I'd better order 2 of the mixed cases then. Make sure I've got enough to get through the year. Well, that's excellent. Does anybody have any questions about the 3 spirits that Frederick is showing us? No, with no questions. I'm actually seeing something called a bloody aquavit, which is tomato juice and aquavit, but I don't know. What do you think, Frederick? Yeah.
Well, that works. That works very well to do it like that. Of course, because caraway, it's a very common spice in a lot of cuisines. So for a serve like Bloody Mary, it works very well.
Oh, great. And Vern, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to ask a question?
How do you keep your bottles? Do you keep them in the freezer?
I think keeping your bottles in the freezer is just a way to cover up bad spirits. So if you have a good spirit, drink it at room temperature.
Sorry, drink it at room temperature?
Room temperature. So, but I know it is a tradition, especially in Denmark, to have it in the freezer. In Norway, we drink it at room temperature.
Okay. I don't have room in my freezer right now, so I'm keeping, the only one I happen to have right now is this one here.
The Icelandic one.
That's the one from Iceland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't need to be frozen, apparently.
Well, I keep it in
Well,
the
there
fridge.
is always freezing cold. Room temperature in Iceland is very cold.
Right, there you go. That's right. And I'm seeing there's a Norwegian mule as well, so I'll have to try making that one as well.
Yeah, just mix it up with ginger beer.
Yeah. That's see, then you don't have to do it as a chaser, Vern. You can just you can do it together, ginger beer.
Ginger beer.
Yeah.
That spoils good beer.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. If there aren't any other questions, I think we'll let Frederick go. Thank you so much for joining us, Frederick, from so far away and so late tonight. And thank you to you. Oh, yeah, and you Opinion members. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I hope I'm definitely ordering. I think I will order 2 of the mixed cases so that I've got enough to make all of these cocktails that I'm finding online. So, and I think I'm going to keep Vern's email address around, and I'll probably be reaching out because I get a feeling you know quite a bit about it. So that's great.
I consume it.
There you are. Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Mange
Thank
tak.
you. Thanks, Anais, for arranging this. Okay. Bye-bye.
Jo.